Well, I think we're literally at a moment now where it's really changing. So there's this thing called the New York Times. Let's talk about that for a second. And on one side we had editors, on the other side we had regulators, and in the middle we had reporters. Okay, and those regulators said, if you want to take out a political ad in the New York Times, you have to identify who you are. I am Brian Rose. I work here. I paid for this ad. Okay, and then I can say Brian Rose. He's left, right, or center, whatever it is. Okay. Then over here we had these things called editors, and those editors made sure that what went into the paper was factual as best they could, and if it was incorrect, that it was corrected. Okay, ran a correction. Then along came something called Facebook, let's say, and Facebook said, we're actually not a newspaper. We're a platform. We're something different. We're a platform. And we actually don't need any regulators, and we don't need any editors. Oh, but by the way, you and Mr. New York Times, we'd like all your readers. And we'd like all your advertisers. And by the way, they sucked a lot of our readers and a lot of our advertisers. And that created a real business problem for us and for everybody else. So we looked at Facebook and we said, so you're not a newspaper, you're a platform. How do we actually regulate you? And they said, no, we don't need regulation. Trust us. And because we didn't know how to regulate them, we trusted them. Turns out to have been a huge mistake. They violated our trust. And they are now paying a huge price for it. And they deserve to pay that price because they let us down. Their platform was abused. And it was abused because they're more interested in clicks than facts and the truth. And because facts and the truth require editors and sometimes regulators. And they wanted to avoid both. And so they're paying a price for that now. Now, I know that Facebook clearly provides something really valuable to people because you don't have 2 billion customers around the world unless you're providing something of value. So again, it's not for me, but I recognize that they provide something of real value to people who want to be connected to family, friends, political allies, or whatever. But they need to get their act together. And I hope they're regulated myself. And I'm really counting on the European Union because too many people in our Congress get bought off by some of these tech companies, and I'm counting on the European Union. Their privacy regulations and their, sort of their responsibility regulations. I think they're doing the Lord's work for the world in insisting on calling these people to account and regulating them.
Right, front page on the New York Times last night, on the internet at least, was reporting on this kind of internal turmoil in Facebook and getting rid of someone who might have said or tried to control internally the news and regulate the news and try to check it. And now he's out. He's out, It seems like his whole department's been disbanded, which is quite
fascinating. From what I could read, So, again, it's what I've really noticed was, a couple of years ago, we were mainstream media, we the New York Times, and we were supposedly dead and nearly buried. Not dead and buried, but dead and nearly buried. Okay. Boy, 2 years later, the New York Times is as healthy as ever financially. Our stock price is up 30%, in the last 6 months. And what I find,
electronic platform is successful.
Yeah, electronic. We have more digital subscribers than anybody in the world now, and it's because it turns out a lot of people want trusted news, news they can trust. Not that we don't make mistakes, we do, but when we do, and it's pointed out to us, we try to correct them. And I think people are looking for trusted navigators today more than ever, or at least a certain critical mass of people are, and they're making a very healthy base for The Guardian, for the New York Times, for the Washington Post, and we're, I don't want to say we're cool now, but we're no longer dismissed as some old mainstream media, and now Facebook is really under the gun. Their platform is really being challenged by their users. And how are you using my data? This notion is, oh, I get it. I'm actually your product, and the advertisers are your customers. You're not their customer, you're their product. Yeah. They're actually selling you to that advertiser, your data, your habits, your likes and your dislikes. And by the way, you're like with Google, I'm ready to make that trade. Wow, what I get from Google in terms of search, in terms of directions, in terms of news, in terms of insight, I couldn't live without Google. I could live without Facebook in a second. And I could easily live without Twitter. But so I'm ready to make that trade. I know Google is I can see from the ads, I'm going to the UK and suddenly I get UK ads. Okay, I get that. The computer's following that. I'm actually ready to make that trade. Right. I really feel I'm getting something in return. But I think the others, it's really becoming questionable. Facebook played a clearly important role. How big, whether it was decisive, I don't know in our last election, the way it was abused. And I don't think we'll know fully ever, but we certainly don't know fully yet. First, Mark Zuckerberg said it's kind of crazy to think that Facebook was used that way. And then it was, oops, 128 million people read, some of these fake ads. So they've been incredibly slow to identify how they were exploited and to share that with their users. And so I'm glad they're being called to account by their users. That's really healthy. And we've been through those kind of things before as the New York Times. The readers keep you honest, and they're going to be called for account. So I think they're the cool kids, is kind of worn off a little bit. And maybe you hear a little of the resentment of an old fogey mainstream media guy watching them, be put through this. And there's a little of that, but again, I go back to where I started. Obviously, they provide a lot of value for people. You don't get 2 billion customers without that. So they're going to be here. So let's have the best version of Facebook we're going to have. Yeah. And they're going to go through that. But they're going to have to hire editors. Now, they've hired 3,000 editors, but when you have 2 billion users, it's a drop in the bucket.